Guys, what's up? This is Adam here. I can't see the guy. Welcome to the Movie Vault. I know it's been a long time since I've reviewed movies, but I've got some free time right now to try and get this channel up and running again. You know, so many people will notice it more. But people do say, when am I going to make a movie review again? I've got the time to do it right now. And what better way to review it on a Disney movie which I loved growing up? The Great Mouse Detective, also known as Basil the Great Mouse Detective, from the year 1986 by Disney. Now, this is a childhood favourite of mine, everybody. I know I've said this from time and time again about all the other Disney films that I've reviewed in the past. You know, love Disney from the 90s, you know, and through my childhood growing up, mainly because of the dark nature to them. And I keep saying this in the start of every review, every time I review a Disney movie, that Disney's a big part of everybody's lives, you know, youngsters and adults and toddlers, you know, people of all ages. People of all ages travel all over the world to visit Disney World, and it's a big part of everyone's lives, so... But this one in particular, The Great Mouse Detective, and as also, as you can see by the title, a childhood favourite of mine. I don't usually put that next to all the Disney films which I'll review, despite them being big childhood favourites. This one has a diamond to it, because this is one that I constantly watched on VHS over and over and over again. I remember back in the day, you know, we had all these VHS shops, you know, that sold VHSs and also rented them. Well, my mother rented this one for me when I was very young, and I was like, can I please keep this, Mum? Can I please keep this, Mum? Because this is one that was very catchy to me and it really appealed, and my mum eventually bought it to me on VHS. And I wore the tape out, you know, mainly because I was a big fan of the main lead villain, Ratigan, who was voiced by Vincent Price, you know, so... and I was also a big fan of his number one henchman, Fidget the Bat, who had a pegged leg, voiced by Candy Candido, you know. And Candy Candido's been in other voice acting roles that I've liked. I know he did the voice of the main chief in Peter Pan. And from what I understand, he also did the voice of the Angry Tree in The Wizard of Oz. I could be wrong with that, but I'm pretty sure he did the voice of the of that tree, you know, where Dorothy takes the apple from the tree and the tree goes, "What do you think you are doing?" You know, I'm pretty sure that is Candy Candido doing the voice of that. But he's done loads of voice roles, and especially for Disney. Okay. Basically, The Great Mouse Detective, what it's about is, the film opens up, it takes place in London, and there's this little girl by the name of Olivia, who's a mouse, and that's the beauty of this movie. It's mainly played by mice, or reptiles, or little small animals, which are really appealing to a younger crowd of Disney, you know. But anyway, this little girl, Olivia, she's got a father who's a toy maker by the name of Flavisham. And he makes her a toy for a birthday, which I don't think that's actually right. I think it is her birthday, or it's just a general gift. But he makes her a gift, one thing leads to another, and Fidget breaks into the toy shop, and he's having a squabble with Flavisham, and he ends up getting kidnapped, while Olivia's been hid away into a cupboard. And Olivia is on one big mission to try and find out where father's been taken. So she goes to try and find Basil, who lives on Baker Street. And while this is happening, we get introduced to another mouse character by the name of Dr. Dawson. You know, he arrives in London for like a bit of a retirement. He encounters Olivia and he decides to help her because she's crying her eyes out. She's missing her father, and she's trying to find Basil to try and help her find out where her dad's been taken. So he takes to see Basil. Basil shows up a little late because he's on one big mission to try and track down Ratigan, you know, his main arch enemy. You know, because he comes home and he investigates these bullets from a gun, and when it's not a match, he goes very depressed. He's like, another dead end. I like how he shoots the pillow, you know, to try and test out the bullet. You know, so he's got like this crazy side of him, Basil has. He's a very hard worker, he's very intelligent, but at the same time he feels very let down to himself because he can't capture Ratigan, you know, the main villain, who he's been trying to find for years. But then a light bulb strikes in his head when when Olivia mentions that Fidget the peg-legged bat took her father away, because then straight away it clicks in his mind saying he's like the main henchman of Ratigan. So now he knows he's on one big lead to try and find Ratigan by using the girl, and also by rescuing the father as well at the same time. Then when we get introduced to Ratigan, he's like this main villain who's on one big mission to try and take over the Queen and Buckingham Palace, basically. Because he's got all these men working for him, all these other mice and rats who are also henchmen of his. Fidget's like the main henchman, you know. But we learn about Ratigan that he's very greedy, he thinks he's very smart, very intelligent. He hates being called a rat, because there's even a part in this movie, you know, where a mouse calls him a rat because he's very drunk, and Ratigan feeds the mouse to a pet cat, Felicia, you know, and the cat even swallows the mouse and burps afterwards. So one thing about this movie I noticed, there are some pretty dark moments. I mean, like I say, not just the cat swallowing the mouse and burping, but we also get scenes in this movie, you know, where people are getting drunk. We get scenes in this movie, you know, where a female mouse is literally stripping on the stage. We get a scene, you know, where there's a bar fight scene, you know, but I'll get to that in just a moment. In terms of songs, there wasn't many songs in this movie. We had a great Criminal Mind when they sing a Ratigan song, like Ratigan, oh Ratigan, the world's greatest mind, you know. We got the Ratigan song. We get the bar song, you know, with the leading mice singing Let Me Be Good to You. But there's not many songs in this movie, you know, which is fair play because this movie is not on for very long. In fact, I'll double check to see how long this movie's on for. Goes at a short pace, 74 minutes. 74 minutes, which is not very long. I mean, one thing I will also mention is that the budget of $14 million, about $50 million at the box office. It wasn't a blockbuster hit, but it was just enough for Disney to get the satisfactory out of it, you know, because it was also released on July 2nd of 1986, the official release date. Okay. I love the music in this movie by Henry Mancini, you know, because even when the opening sequence of this movie is showing like this background music. I love the sky chase scene, the background music to that, you know, where Flaversham, Dawson and Basil made this big hot air balloon out of the England Union Jack flag and a matchbox, you know, where they're chasing Ratigan, you know, through the sky. Love the music to that. Because Basil is investigating, you know, the whereabouts of the little girl's father. They end up going to a toy store where they also get introduced to another dog named Toby. Toby and Olivia share a special chemistry because he behaves more in Alicia's presence. The little girl's presence, and Basil is getting a little bit pissed off with it because he doesn't listen to what Basil says. But we learn that Ratigan's on one big mission to try and take over Buckingham Palace. And he even sends Fidget to the toy store to rob the toys of their uniforms so that they can dress as royal guards, you know, to sneak into Buckingham Palace, you know. And one thing leads to another. We get a bar scene, you know, where Dawson and Basil dress up as ruffians, you know, try and mix in with the group. Basil's smoking a cigarette, and you think to yourself, you will not see that in today's Disney movies, but that's why I love these Disney movies so much, because the fact they can get away with anything, you know, whether it's violence, getting drunk, dark suspense scenes, violence, you know, and all that kind of thing. Now, one thing I do want to say is that the female mouse who's singing on stage, I thought she was going to play a bigger role in this movie when I first saw it. I thought she was going to be a love interest to Basil or Dawson, or she was working for Ratigan but eventually joined good, but nothing came of that. She just sings that song on the stage, Let Me Be Good to You. And she has like a very small role in this movie. But it just goes to show that not all Disney movies have to have a love interest, I suppose. You know, you got Bambi, who, like, Bambi has a love interest, you know, in Feline in the film Bambi. You know, whether it's Cinderella falling in love with the prince, or love interests. But in this film, Basil, the Great Mouse Detective, there's no love interests or anything like that. And it just goes to show that you don't really need a love interest all the time in every Disney film. We get a scene where Dawson's falling in love with the singing girls, but nothing comes of it, you know. Although he gets kissed on the cheek and he falls off the stage onto a piano, which causes a big bar fight. Basil and Dawson get captured. They get tied to a mousetrap. Love that sequence, but Basil masterminds the trap, and he ends up getting freed. And then he's on one big mission to stop Ratigan from taking over Buckingham Palace, which he succeeds to do. And the end sequence, I'll have to say, is where they spent most of the budget. You know, where they crash into the Big Ben. You know, the Big Ben clock tower. You know, with all the gears and all the pulleys and all that. And he's trying to rescue the little girl, which he does. But there was a fight scene on the Big Ben, and by the time this time there's rain, there's thunder, there's lightning. The atmosphere was really well mixed, you know, the effects. You know, one thing I was really amazed is that Basil did not really stand up to Ratigan like I thought he would, like in a fight scene. I know Ratigan's much more bigger and stronger than Basil, and I suppose it wasn't entirely bad, but I thought fight-wise Basil was going to outsmart Ratigan a little bit more. And I thought to myself, hey, if you can't outdo Ratigan physically, you might as well outdo him mentally. And that was indeed the choice, because when he's hanging from the air vehicle, he rings the bell, the clock chimes, and Ratigan falls to his death. Basil falls down with him, but he ends up swinging the pulley like a bicycle, and he ends up going back up the hot air balloon. And everyone's reunited, everyone lives happily ever after, basically. And just before the movie ends, this is other mouse lady who's missing a ring. I often thought that was the mother of the little girl, but it turns out it wasn't. It was just someone looking for help for a lost ring. And that's basically the end of the movie. I mean, like I say, it went at a short pace of 74 minutes. And for a 74-minute movie, I was really impressed. I mean, in terms of the voice acting, like I say, you got Vincent Price, who played Ratigan, you got Candy Candido, who played Fidget. And speaking of Fidget, I always wondered, did he really survive that fall when Ratigan threw him off from the airship and he went into the water below? That's always puzzled me to this very day. Did Fidget really survive? If so, if you was going to make a sequel to this movie, you could easily involve Fidget to be like another villain in another movie. But I don't know what came of that. That's always puzzled me. I've always wanted to know, did Fidget really survive that fall when Ratigan threw him off from the airship? Always wanted to know that. But the characters were lovable. Everyone was likeable. The little girl Olivia, she wasn't annoying or irritating or anything like that. She was very sweet. The dog Toby was very cute, very lovable. And the characters were very enjoyable, something that you could get behind. But like I say, my main favourite character would have to be Ratigan. I remember when I was a little kid and I used to watch Ratigan's song, listen to Ratigan's song, Greatest Criminal Mind. I used to sing along to it and it used to make my mother laugh. God bless her soul, she's no longer with us. But like I said, I just got done watching the film moments ago so I could do this review, and I'm glad I did. It was like watching childhood memories all over again. You know, so definitely a childhood favourite. It's got to be in my top 5 favourite Disney movies. This movie, Basil the Great Mouse Detective. Don't get me wrong, I love all your other typical ones like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Toy Story, Cinderella, The Lion King, 101 Dalmatians. I love them all, but this one, Basil's definitely going to be in the top 5. I don't know what my favourite Disney movie of all time is. That is something I'm going to have to really truly think hard about what it is. But this one, Basil, is one that I do recommend for everybody. If you like 90s Disney, then you will like this. I mean, like I said, this came out in the year of 1986, July 2nd of 1986. So all the 80s Disney movies and all through the 90s are the best ones and the ones that I really recommend. Mainly because of the stuff they got away with and all the dark nature and all that kind of thing. But that's my review, everybody. This is one I really do recommend for all members of the family. Please check it out. And don't forget to leave a comment and subscribe. Thanks for watching this, everybody. Peace out. Have a nice day.